Hey you guys, welcome back to Southern Latitudes. I'm Robin, and we're right in the middle of a series, and today's episode is going to be about when to start your tomato seeds for fall planting, but then we'll also go through spring planting. We'll go through some terminology and varieties. And so since we're here right now, I thought let's go through what I already have in here. This is June 10th, 11th, something like that. And as you can see, I don't normally see tomatoes this late in the game, but I think I am getting better and better at picking my varieties, to be quite honest with you. And I'm watching advice from you guys, and I'm watching advice from friends locally. So in here, let's see, we'll just roughly go through them. These are Blue Cream's berry cherry tomatoes. How can I tell that while they're green? Because they have a little bit of a dark shoulder on them. So this is in the cherry tomato family. These are really beautiful. Behind it, I have two of these varieties, and then I have 2 or 3 of the Napa Chardonnay. And as you can see, they're yellow. Hold on. I picked some earlier so I wouldn't have to stretch so hard. Let's get them. There we go. These are really delicious. I like the Napa Chardonnay. These are Heirloom tomato. We're going to talk about that later too. And here I threw in some Dixie red tomatoes. We're going to show some other pictures of them, but while we're live right now, right in the middle of me talking, look at the size on these. These are huge. These are half-pounders easily, if not bigger. And there's another one. And we're also going to talk about being determinates. These are determinate varieties. This is the heat-loving variety. We'll talk about that in the shed. Now this is Sweetheart tomatoes, and I am seeing the ends chewed off like that. So I am thinking we have the tomato hornworm in here. I will throw a little picture of what one looks like if I can't find it here in the next second. I don't see it, but we can come out here tonight with, if it's not lightning, because I just hear thunder right over my shoulder. We can come out here with a flashlight or just one of those blue lights, and they will glow with the blue light, but you can find them either way. Usually if you just, 2 things give it away. You see, well, 3 really. Okay, let's do 3. So you see things are coming off the end. Now the blooms are also coming off. That's another story. We'll talk about that in the shed. But that definitely looks like something's eating it. We know something's eating this. And then you'll see the classic poop. Somewhere in here you'll see poop, and then you'll find your hornworm. But look at all the tomatoes. Let's not get stuck on that for right now. I'll have to come back later and find him. He's out here somewhere. Over here I have well, that's Sweetheart right here. But over here I have Jet Stars. Now Jet Stars are fantastic for me in the fall and overwintering, but you can see heat is not their thing. So we'll talk about that in the shed also. I sound like a broken record, don't I? But I have lots and lots of notes for you because I came super prepared this time so I would go fast. Okay, over here next, these are Grand Marshalls. Look at these babies. Not as, there's a bunch of ants right there. Healthy. See how healthy this plant is? Woo, beautiful. I've already eaten a couple of these off of here. Now I do have a little damage up there. That's probably army worm. Look, I got more. Oh man, I didn't even see this one. Look at that. You know what that is? That'll be our blossom end rot. Part of our discussion later. I don't usually have that problem. Look at that. That's just bugs getting in there on this one. Look at those. They're beautiful. Hold on. This is a good example. I have not seen blossom end rot in my garden in years, but there's a prime example of it. So that's Grand Marshalls. Okay, let's keep going. More Grand Marshalls. Aren't they gorgeous? They're gorgeous. These are really big. Then in here I had Amish paste and they didn't make it. Amish paste did not like this heat. Ooh, I got a melon going bad in the bag. And over here I have, or had rather, red rosa tomato, Sicilian tomato, that's the heirloom. It does not like this either. So that's not very good, but I picked the wrong variety, and so that's on me. And we're going to talk about all these things going on in the garden, and then what to plant. Oh no, we have 2 more varieties. I totally forgot we have 2 more varieties. So this is the no, 3, 4. Oh man, I'm trying to get to that shed fast. So this is the Abu Ruwan. Now that's a little caterpillar damage right there, but as you can see, they have a little bit of a pink or darker shoulder, not pink. This is another heat-loving variety. I had something called a copia that was down here. Did not like the heat at all. I also had yellow tomatoes down here. Now these have not done very well, but let me show you my better variety. Did I say variety? I didn't mean variety. I meant just a better specimen. Look at that. Those are the yellow pear tomatoes. A lot of you, if you're in Florida, I know you've either sought these out or you're growing them, or you have grown them at one time. I used to call them hurricane tomatoes because every time a hurricane came, you would find them in another part of your yard or in your neighbor's yard, or, you know, next street over. So here we are. This is the hurricane tomato, better known as its real name, the Everglades tomato. So it loves to travel. It's sort of a traveling vine. Look at it all out here. Woo! Oh, that's mixed in with another plant right there. Well, I saw the red ones earlier. Sometimes Buddy likes to get in here and eat them. Everybody likes to eat them. There we go. Here's a real good example. One's more ready than the other, but these are Everglade tomatoes. They are absolutely delicious, and they don't mind the heat in Florida. Okay, you guys, welcome back. Okay, we're in the shed now, and we're going to talk tomatoes. When are we going to start seeding them for fall? Well, not these, because these are spring tomatoes. But last year I seeded on August 8th of 2021. Now it didn't take very long. The sun's still up pretty high in the sky. Got lots of rain. So that's water. We have lots of sunlight, day length. Hopefully your soil's pretty good. That means that you're also going to be amending your soils with a lot of heat and prepare to sweat. All right, so then it only takes me about a month and I'm ready to transplant that first week of September. Then I didn't have a lot in my notes, you know, in between all that, but I treat all my tomato groups the same. Hey, bud. And I then saw my first tomatoes ripen by Thanksgiving, which was last year. I think it was November 27th. Now that was just the first one. They continued to ripen. Now, if you're in Central Florida like me, I don't get a frost until usually late December or early January, anytime in there. My first frost date is December 31st, and my last frost date is February 1st. But really, I add 2 weeks onto each side of that schedule. So anytime after mid-December, be prepared to cover your gardens. If you're north of me, of course, that can be much sooner than that. If you're south of me, you probably don't have to worry about it at all. And then in February, I'd get started with seedlings if I have a place to put them into for protection. What I don't like to do is direct sow them in the ground. You actually can. I have bumped it up to the 1st and I've done the 15th in my area, and you can do it and still have a frost if your plants stay really low. Now, I wouldn't take something from a big box store that's already this high, put it in the ground February 1st, because it may get burnt on the tips of the leaves. And then I ripped all my fall garden out on April 2nd. Tomatoes have a certain life, And I don't try to push it, just like chickens, you know, you can get a 9-year-old chicken, right? But if you need eggs, if you're in production or whatever, you want your chickens between ages, you know, 0 and 3 years old. So the tomatoes are kind of the same. You may be able to squeak out a tomato or two, but at some point you just cut your losses. And you can have blight, and you can have other terrible things, you know, that just wipe out your crop. But usually, because we're overwintering them, blight is not one of my problems until the next spring. Well, no, let's continue on. So since I ripped them out on April 2nd, I then had the next set of transplants ready to go. When did I seed those? I seeded them February 2nd of 2022. If you're north of me, where you get heavy frost, like hard freezes, you probably are gonna, you know, just be done by the time whenever your first frost is. And then you'll want to restart your seeds like January 1st, February 1st, something like that. But for me, there wasn't any sense in pushing really early on my seeds because I already had a full garden. I knew that my replacements would be more in line with what I need to grow during heat. So I seeded February 2nd, and then I transplanted a little bit late, but that's when I felt the other garden was done, on April 2nd. So you can, if you don't have tomatoes already in your ground, you can transplant in March. That's no problem. I just already had good tomatoes, and so I let my seedlings get quite high, and I was having to water them twice a day. And we talked earlier on another video with the peppers about being root bound. My tomatoes were quite root bound, and I had to water them twice a day. They kept going, ooh, and that, ooh. You know, they were doing a lot of aerobics. I went in April 2nd, and then now you're still seeing them. I've only had a couple of the large Grand Marshalls come up, and of course we're eating plenty of the yellow pears, the Everglades, the Napa Chardonnay, and the blue Creamsbury cherries, and the Sweethearts. I have done both, actually. I have direct sowed into the ground, but lately, the past 3 years, I have enjoyed a seed starting tray. I splurged on a nice set of those 162 cell trays, but they're just a harder plastic, and they're not even close to being worn out, and I can probably get another 10 to 20 years out of them, probably as long as I live. Maybe the plastic will never break down. They're solid. I could probably run over them with my truck. I've noticed since I've done seed trays that I actually do not go through seed near as much as I did when I direct sowed everything in years past. Put it either in seedling starter or potting soil. Potting soil, I do moisture control, and it works just fine. Once they get up and you get them transplanted in the ground, you'll want to use a bamboo stake like this, you know, to secure them in. That's what Hollis and Nancy recommend on their page. If not, I have cages. I've got cages I made from not cattle wire, I guess they call it horse wire. And I've made cages myself. I have an old video on that. And then I've also inherited and bought tomato cages. Now they're quite pricey now. I see people doing the Florida weave with the like 2 stakes, and then they weave a rope or string between tomatoes. That's the economical way. I don't do that only because sometimes my tomatoes get so big, they'll just pull that whole thing over. I've seen them pull over. I've had to use concrete blocks to hold my tomato cages upright because they're just up over the side and gone. I've used cattle panels. You guys have seen it in my house garden, and I think before I really did a lot of YouTube, I also did it in the salsa garden. One year I trialed like 17 different heirlooms in the spring. That was crazy. It was not that great for me because I'm still learning what worked here. Once they go into the ground, they're already going into really good mushroom compost. Now, mushroom compost has a lot of goodies like in it. I think it has like chicken poo and gypsum and maybe even some lime and whatever goodies. They do that for the mushrooms. Now, if you get blossom and rot like this, That's usually a calcium deficiency, and the gypsum should have cured that. But because I didn't put fresh mushroom compost on, perhaps, there's less calcium in it now here in June than there was when I first put in the compost back in August. This is really a shock to me. This does not happen very frequently where I am. Let's talk about gypsum, okay? It's a combination of calcium and sulfate. So the calcium cures things like blossom end rot. Sometimes it helps, well, if the lack of it will be the death of the terminal end of your buds, so your indeterminates won't grow further. It kills off the root tips down below the ground. You'll have abnormally dark green leaves. You'll have premature shedding of your blossoms and blooms, and weak stems. Now, sulfate, if you're lacking that, you'll have light green colored leaves, small spindly plants of very slow growth. So gypsum works. Do I put it in? No, because like I said, it's in the mushroom compost. But if I needed help, that's what I would do. A lot of you have questions like that. So what is this? What is this? I've seen this picture this week already. So get some. You can buy gypsum in a lot of places, and then you can get lime is calcium, or dolomite is calcium, and that also helps to raise the pH because tomatoes don't like really acidic soil. Let's talk temperatures at night, since it's almost nighttime and it's hot and I'm sweating, and our nights are probably about 75, 76 degrees tonight alone and all this week. So what is going to happen? You saw my sweetheart tomatoes. They're losing a lot of the blooms. The jet stars lost their blooms. Why? Because the nights are over 70 degrees. I see people talking about heat of the day and stuff. That's actually incorrect. It's more important to look at the night temperatures. So let's go low temperatures to high temperatures. So when you're going into the fall and everything, okay, I don't know what your lows are going to be, but we're not even looking at, for here where I am, just east of Orlando, I don't start going below 70 degrees until it's usually around mid-October, late third week of October. And that is kind of when you want your plants. I put them in the ground in September, but you're going to start seeing blooms by October, and by then, boom, you're at that magic number for your night temps to be under 70 degrees. That's what we're shooting for, to be a mature plant right when it's time for fruiting season. But then it doesn't take very long. We just have a short time from the end of October really until a potential frost, right? But you can get a lot of fruit in it during that time of fruit setting. It's been studied with the USDA and also the University of Texas that tomato plants can survive at 33 degrees. I have proven that year after year here. You can maybe lose like I tarp them sometimes, or blanket them, or put sheets on them, and you'll lose the top, but you won't lose the whole tomato. You'll make sort of like a canopy, and in there is the hot air is not hot, but warm air is trapped inside with your tomatoes, and so you won't lose the whole plant. If you go under 50 degrees, you'll have trouble converting the sunlight into sugars, so fruit set is a little bit lower. Does it stop it? No, it still continues, but the photosynthesis is a little bit more difficult. That's what they've studied. It's a misconception that you think you need bees for pollinating tomatoes. You do not. You just need wind or a good handshake. You can run your hands along your tomato plants. That's enough. That's all you really need to get some good pollination going, or a breeze or something like that. But you do not need bees necessarily. I mean, you can have bees, that's wonderful, but you don't need them necessarily for tomatoes. When I'm in the winter, and I tend to do more heirlooms in the fall going into the winter, because that's when heirlooms are happiest with the cooler temperatures. But once you start going under 50 degrees, you'll see a lot more cap facing on your tomatoes. I grew the red Rosa Sicilian tomatoes. Actually, not by choice. It was a seed in a wrong seed in a seed packet for cherry tomatoes, and which I was glad to have. I've never tried that variety before, And we did see a lot of cat facing during the coldest of those months. But it was a really cool tomato to grow. I don't know, if you're looking for a canning tomato, it's not your best for canning though. Going through and you're starting to get warmer in the spring, your temperatures it's usually around, for me, the 3rd week of May that we start seeing night temperatures go over 70 degrees. And it happens very fast. You'll go from those upper 60s. Occasionally you'll have a 71, 72. That's okay. But you'll head back down to the 60s. And then next thing you know, it seems like your nights are just like, you can't breathe. It's super hot. It's super humid. You're up over 70 easily. You go right from 70 to like 76-degree nights. So you will definitely have fewer fruits. What kind of tomato am I picking when the nights get hot? I'm going to go for the smaller fruits, like cherry tomatoes, like the sweethearts. Camparis are really good. Everglades tomatoes, you saw those out front. There are now F1 crosses that are excellent for heat. So a couple examples of those are the Dixie Red and the Grand Marshal, which I have in my garden. But then there's 3 more that I found online: Arkansas Marvel, Mortgage Lifter, and Homestead 24. Let's talk bugs, because tomatoes come with bugs. Now, for the most part, healthy plant, very little bugs. Probably 6 weeks ago, I started having white flies like crazy. I just didn't catch it. We were in our dry period. The white flies love it when it's hot and dry at the same time. And so do aphids. I just didn't catch them until there's already a severe outbreak, and I put my hand over the plant and those little white flies come out, okay? On the bottom side of the leaf, you could see all the little nymphs, okay? They're just like the larva, if you will. The best way that I was able to treat them, and I don't usually use much stuff like to kill bugs on my plants. First of all, I find a lot of stuff doesn't work. It's soap and water seems to work better. Neem oil, be careful. Use it at night only. And in this case, I went straight to neem oil. And I don't love it, but I did it. Didn't focus on the whole plant, just on the major affected areas, which was in that front row. And I turned over, sprayed the bottom side, and then I'd come back a few days later, get the bottom side again, just drench the whole plant. I didn't eat any fruit. There was none ripe anyhow at that time, but I just made sure I soaked it. I did it 3 or 4 times. Did it take away all of them? No, but it definitely knocked back the population. I was looking carefully at my plants. I saw that the ladybugs were coming in and they were trying to do a good job. I did not hit the ladybugs with the neem oil. I skipped over them. It seems to be enough under control so we can finish out fruiting until probably everything will die in August. Now, does it have to die in August? No. If you put up a shade cloth, you may be able to get through tomatoes and peppers with a shade cloth. For the tomatoes, I will just let them die out, because by then they will have started in February, and I expect to lose them by August 1st. That's a good long life for a tomato, really, when you think about it. And I will just start again, as you know, on August 8th. Let's talk about other bugs, okay? So you can have aphids, white flies. I have had the leaf-footed bug. They're kind of nasty critters. I don't actually know. I've never actually studied on if they destroy plants. I haven't seen them actually destroy plants. They destroy the fruit, so you don't really want them, but I've not actually treated for them other than put on a pair of gloves and start squishing them. And the red spider mites, okay, now that may be what kills them in August. So all of a sudden I'll just start, and it really only happens in salsa garden, and you'll just start seeing these little spider webs, and there's 1,000 little red spiders on a, those are red spider mites. I think there's also white spider mites, but I don't get them here, but I get the red ones. In the winter, I almost have to do nothing. Is that the right sentence structure? In the winter, there's like nothing bug pressure for me. It's fantastic. Everything's completely organic out there and healthy, and I can eat fruit right off the vine. I love it in the winter. Never have to worry about the bugs. It's only here in late spring that I have to worry. Once your plants get in the ground, you might want to cut off the lower couple leaves. Like if that's your tomato and you have the big leaves here, usually you have your first set of leaves, they start touching the ground right here. You might want to snip those off, because those can bring disease up into your plant and weaken your plant. Let's talk about two different varieties that you usually see within tomato groups. You see indeterminate and determinate. So indeterminate is essentially a bush or vine where the tomato keeps growing and growing and growing. So you'll have fruit down here, and then you have another blooms and more fruit here and so forth, and it'll keep going up. And they can get rather tall and long and viney and creepy, and the Everglades falls perfectly into that category. In fact, a lot of cherry tomatoes fall into that category. The yellow pears fall in that. The jet stars were in that category as well. Determinate are ones that pretty much grow. They become a mature height all at once, and they put out blooms all at once, and then they set fruit all at once. They really lose their vigor after the whole first set of fruit. Both types really should be caged. Doesn't matter if one's going to be taller than the other. They both need a lot of support. And you don't want to prune the determinate tomatoes. You want to just let them do their thing, because really they're just only going to be here for a short while, so you let them do their thing. That's because mom said so. The indeterminates, now you feel free to prune off those suckers all you want. You do what you want with them, and you give them all the airflow they can. It's not as necessary in the winter when we're in low humidity, but when we start getting like now, like you could see sweat dripping off of me, you're going to want to prune those guys. Types that are in the determinate category are going to be your paste. Like I've grown Amish and San Marzano and Tachi Roma tomatoes. You have celebrity tomatoes. The red snapper tomato is really popular right now, and those are determinate, and so are the new Hasanator I see that's hot on the market. The Grand Marshal and the Dixie Red that I grow, the F1 crosses, they are also determinate. So that's why you haven't seen me prune a lot that's in here. Let's talk some more terminology. When you get to those websites and you're picking out your seed, you're like, what is open pollinated? What is, cross pollination? Okay, hybrids. I just mentioned heirlooms and hybrids. Okay, let's go through it one by one. Okay, so there's natural pollination, open pollination. It's what you think it is, right? You got a couple plants, right? It's just open to the air, and the bees are going to come and go here and there, or the ants or whatever. The air is going to blow it. Corn can be open pollination, So there are two ways for pollination, okay? I'm going to just pretend these are plants, right? So there's cross pollination, where this plant of the same variety as this one can, put the pollen over here. That is a cross pollination. And even hybrids, heirlooms, whatever, they can all do that. Blow it over. Okay, corn does that. So then there is self-pollination. Oh, this also happens with fruit trees too. While I'm at it, I might as well tell you. So, and then there's self-pollination, where this plant just drops its pollen onto itself. Sometimes that happens with corn. Tomatoes can do a lot of self-pollinating. So there's male and female parts on the same bloom, and with that, then you can it can pollinate itself. Did you guys see Jurassic Park yet? I don't want to do any spoilers, but blue is a self-pollinator. You didn't hear that from me? Okay. It's true. Blue. Okay. Next word, heirloom. What is heirloom? It's an older, well-established, open pollinated, stable genetics plant or seed, right? It's very popular now. It's increasing in popularity. It used to be something your great-grandfather passed down your grandfather, and then to your father, and then to you, right? Well, It's becoming very popular now between Baker Creek Seeds, Seed Savers Exchange, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. These companies are all doing a wonderful job of bringing heirloom seeds back to the backyard gardener. Heirlooms do not work that well down here with Florida heat. You heard me say I've got a lot of F1 crosses. In genetics talk, that just means I have this plant and this plant. Somebody took plant A and crossed it with plant B, a cross-pollination, and that in turn created a baby, which is a F1 hybrid. Okay, now if you put two F1s together like I have with my asparagus below the camera, then those two pollinate and that becomes an F2 baby. Okay, that's simple genetics right there. So that's all F1 means. Somebody in a highly controlled tomato factory had this variety here, scooped up all the pollen, and in a very controlled manner pollinated all the plants over here. I don't know how they do that when there's a male and female on most tomato varieties, but they do. So that's how hybrids are happen. It can happen randomly, you know, within your own garden, but when you buy seed in the store, it's genetically modified. Is it a GMO? No, it's not modified on the cellular level. It is just modified with a little pollen crossed over, okay? So I don't think any hobby gardeners or seed companies that sell to hobby gardeners, they shouldn't be able to sell you any GMO seeds. That's pretty much a law as far as I know. GMO seeds usually just go to commercial people, and you have to be big names. That's not you and me. Which do I prefer? Because this comes up once in a while. Do I prefer heirloom or do I prefer hybrid? Well, it just depends. In the winter, you know, I can get away with a little more heirlooms. They're absolutely beautiful. They taste delicious. I love the thought of saving seeds, right? But the hybrids, sometimes like this, we have uncontrollable heat right now and humidity. And I think I'm going to always have Grand Marshalls and Dixie Reds in my garden, and you know, but I also can't live without my Everglades, and I can't live without a lot of things. So I think there's room for both in our world, right? Okay, you guys, so I think that concludes our talk on tomatoes. If I have left anything out or totally confused you, I probably misspoke at least 3 times, and I will try to correct that either above my head or below my head, and I will try to fix my errors. But if you caught something that you have a question about, or I said wrong or confused you on, please put it in the comments below. You guys have really been coming through in the comments and asking really good questions and stuff like that. So I will try to respond at least once a day to all whatever comes through, and if I know it, I'll answer. If I don't know it, I'll research it and still answer it for you, or just let you know I don't know, because I don't know all things. I just know this thing right here. I've been doing this for 15 years at this house, and I've been doing it out here for 3 years, but probably, you know, I was just fresh out of diapers when I started my first garden with my dad. My dad he's an avid fisherman, and just like we were, and he used to put all his fish guts in the garden, and he had tomatoes that grew past the basement and was starting to go all the way up to the first level of the house. They were huge. I'm guessing they were indeterminates. But I learned my love of gardening a lot from him, and I think he got it from his dad. So, and Mom, if your parents grew vegetables, I don't remember it, so let me know. But anyhow, you guys, take care. God bless. Love you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.